Hello, I'm Chris Creed from ADAS, and I'm here on behalf of Tyfu Cymru project, and we're at Crûg Farm today with Bleddyn and Sue Wynn-Jones, and I'd just like to introduce them and say, how did you get started on this major diversification project?
Well, we were beef farmers before, going back 30 years or so. We didn't feel we were making enough income off the acreage that we've got. And I had an interest in growing plant. We thought we'd diversify. Initially, we rented out half the land we've got to graziers from nearby, and that seemed to work well. We were making actually more money from renting out the land than we were working it. It was working very well the first year, and we decided second year to rent out the other half and carried on from there.
But I think we also found that we needed to get a niche market, though, didn't we, with what we were selling, and that's why we started going off collecting.
What triggered that then? Because obviously most people starting up a nursery will be growing fairly conventional produce or plants, and then you went completely different to that. And
I was interested in the more unusual plants, and we had been going around nurseries in the UK for many years, gathering up as many unusual plants as we could
for the garden in those days.
And I was doing a little bit of wholesaling to places like Bridgemere, large companies. That was actually the largest nursery in the UK at that time, and they were very glad to get their hands on some unusual plants. Somebody doing them wholesale, so I was using that income to stock the gardens.
But we'd always had an interest in travelling, and I think we'd done a lot of backpacking when we were young, and I think the idea of going out and collecting, it was travelling with a purpose and bringing in things that people hadn't seen before, which so we did create the niche market like that, producing things which were new. These are all looking very happy.
You can see what's going on here. Once seed is germinated and weaned onto the air around it, we bring them in here, ready to be pricked out. And you can see over there that the medium that we use is vermiculite, horticultural grade vermiculite. No compost as such, organic that is. And then we put a topping of superheated clay granules, something nice and light so it doesn't press down too hard. We used to use grit at one time, but we found that too heavy in the long term because some of our seed takes so many years to germinate. This is a really difficult one to do. Took us ages to learn what was going on with this. You can see they're producing an inflorescence every year. Those are just flower buds. Year 2, still more flower buds. Year 3, there's still just flower buds. And then year 4, the flowers open and they produce fruit. And in that same year, the fruits ripen. So it's 5 years.
Do you remember when we were loading for Chelsea the other year, and we were using this in our display, and we thought they were fruit, and then they suddenly started flowering just as we were loading. And actually, it was the star of the show, wasn't it? People loved it. And of course, the whole story, we hadn't realised about the significance of the...
Learning as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going out collecting plants is quite a tricky business these days, and I assume it was when you started. So how did you get over all the initial problems of making the contacts?
Well, first country we went to, in 91 that was, it was just a fishing exercise, if you like, getting to know the ropes. It was to Jordan. We learned a hell of a lot there. We learned that plants from countries like Jordan don't like to grow in North Wales for a start. Complete waste of time. There was only a few plants that worked. So then that made us look further afield, looking for climates like our own. Having a conversation with a friend and Taiwan came into it. But yeah, that'd be a good place to have a look. So that started off research. We ended up going down to Kew Gardens. Made an appointment to go to the library there and have a look in the herbarium.
But I think we were very lucky with Taiwan because we actually made a very good contact there. There was a Taiwanese lady over here doing a PhD, and her husband worked for the national parks in Taiwan, and we were introduced to her, and she just said, "You must go and stay with my husband." And of course, he was working in the national park where we wanted to do most of our work. So that was a great introduction, and we were given permission. Well, in fact, he took days off and
he couldn't have been better. He took us around all the national parks, introduced us to the directors of those national parks. We'll expect to see you back here collecting whatever you want. Just went on from there. I mean, they're very helpful, the Taiwanese. Again, we landed on our feet by selecting that country because they believe in sharing. They have a strong ethos in that direction. When we were farming, this was our silage pit. We compost any bark chips that we get here. Our old tractors are quite handy for turning them over. And we use this frame here for germinating seed because it's a north-facing frame. We're actually using old margarine tubs. They're the only containers I've been able to find that are suitable for sowing seed. Can't find anything commercially that has a tight-fitting lid. You can see here it's so tight the condensation is forming inside it. Being transparent, all we have to do is just flick each lid like that once a week, and we can see if anything's germinated in it. And we just go through all the trays. It takes about half an hour. We've had several thousand in this frame, absolutely jam-packed full, but we haven't been out collecting much seed in the last 2 years. And we keep seed in here for anything up to 10 years, depending what the seed is from. And of course, most seed germinate within their first year. Then there's about 25% of them take 2 years to germinate, and then maybe about 5% of them take a bit longer than that. As you can see, they're quite easy to open up, and you can see what's inside. As I mentioned before, we use vermiculite with clay granules inside, and of course it's very important, the labelling. We put the dates that they were sown and the name of the plant, and along with our what we call collection numbers or accession numbers in there as well. So that's kept in the tub with the seed.
The beating heart of this nursery is production of plants from seed. So how did you manage to get going on that, and how did you manage to cope with the long lead-in time that you get from growing things from seed?
I started with the seed. That's what I'm used to. And as far as collecting in the wild, it's far more efficient. You know, if you're collecting plants from the wild, you'd need one hell of a lot of material. And from plant health point of view as well, that's more important. You know, bringing plants in, you need a quarantine unit. We're lucky we've got that nowadays, but initially there was nothing like that. But as I said, far more efficient with seed.
Again, when we first started, we would be away for 3 months at a time, 12 weeks. So again, carrying plants around for 12 weeks wasn't such a good idea, was it?
It's amazing that something like this has come just from seed. And it's the seed, it's like dust, it's so fine on hydrangea.
They're all things that we've grown from seed that we've collected. And, they don't take that long, do they?
No, only 30 years. This is our quarantine unit. As you can see, you have to have 2 doors between the plants and the outside world. This particular door has a very fine mesh on it that no known insect can get through. And we have seals on all the doors so that nothing can get out. We have a fan in here as well that pushes air in, and that has to have two filters on them as well. Lights, of course, we have no natural daylight in a place like this. They're just set on timers, and we have three shelves in here, or 3 layers. Our water has to be in here. Water is not allowed to go out. That has to be caught there, and we have to dispose of that separately. What else can we say on it? Hasn't been cleaned up yet, unfortunately. After the last lot, it'll all have to be fumigated before anything comes in here.
When you first started collecting, then you said you went to Taiwan, and what made you pick that particular area?
Climate. An awful lot of rain there, especially in the winter months, and the cold. Up in the mountains there, daytime temperatures are only +4. So you can imagine that you've got a lot of rain and those low temperatures. That's what kills most of our plants in the winters. So if they can survive their climate, they should be able to survive here with all the Welsh rain.
I think you learn a lot by seeing these things growing in the wild, because in Taiwan the drainage there is superb, isn't it?
That drainage is very important. It's in fact, that's the first thing we used to say. That's the first lesson that we learned, was the amount of drainage that things had.
Part of this business, the success of this business, is that you seem to be very good at getting into plants that are quite trendy. How do you think that through? Is it just coincidence?
No, it's not a coincidence. It's like the fashion trade. You've got to keep your eye on it. There's trends that do everything. Something can be a fabulous plant for a few years, and then off it goes.
I think the main thing too in this business, you never become complacent. You're doing well, but you're always looking to move on, because growing up, Marks and Spencer's was there, and it would never ever go. But look what's happened now. So you've always got to look for new things, new ideas. It's important.
It is. This lot are aspidistras. Not many people grow aspidistras as they used to in the old times. No, very popular in Victorian times.
Bleddyn's new passion aspidistras, but it's amazing how popular they are, and they're hardy, and they have beautiful flowers, and some of them are actually scented. So they're becoming a very saleable plant.
So yeah, there's becoming a large following of them. When we started going out collecting, there were only somewhere around 20 species known to science around the world. Well, they're Asian. Now we've just turned the 200 mark. We're discovering new ones all the time.
So a lot of work's been done with aspidistras now, isn't it? But it's incredible. In some places we find them, you've actually had to take a pickaxe, because they grow in sort of, almost rock, isn't it?
Yeah. I take a crowbar with me. That's the only way you can get at them.
And I think when they were grown as pot plants in the Victorian times, they never flowered, and it was because people buried them too deep in the pot. Whereas in the wild, because they're sort of virtually on the surface, that's how we pot them. So we're seeing flowers, and people just didn't think they flowered. But some of them are even scented, which is incredible.
It seems like from a standing start, you very quickly developed to become sort of global plant suppliers. Seems to be a massive jump.
Well, we've had a lot of connections right around the world. Yes. As supplying them, no, it's difficult. But the EU's been really good for us, because it's expanded our market to something similar to what we see our colleagues doing in the US. It's a big market once you get into something like that.
But again, the couriers these days, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I can send plants out to France, Germany, Holland, and they're there within, well, 48 hours. And that's really good. And we're doing a lot with Eastern Europe now too, aren't we? It's amazing how many of these Eastern European countries buy from us. We're, you know, Romania, Bulgaria, right through. And in fact, we're doing a lot of work with Russia now.
We are, yes.
I think people, they love your stories though, even, you know, in the sales area, because every plant label has a story where, you know, where we've collected it from and something's happened that day, and people, they come into the shop and they say, oh, I've just been around the world and had these adventures with you. They just love a story, you know, the human touch or whatever. But
yeah, the labels are never big enough to get the stories on. Right, this is one of our mother plants, and mother plants are exactly what it says on the tin. They're the mother of lots of plants to come, we hope. You can see down here, this is the inflorescence, now turning into an infrutescence. They're covered in fruit, so inside the fruits will be seed.
How do you go on with the issues of plant passports and plant health that you've achieved here in Wales, and getting that over to the places you're supplying? Do they have to come and do inspections, or?
If we want to send anything out to the US, it has to be bare rooted, and of course phytosanitary certificate. It's a lot of work. I don't think we could do it on a large scale.
No.
There's too much labour involved, and it's too difficult to find labour in this area.
So you would say bare rooted would be take a plant out of a pot of compost and wash all the compost off?
You have to wash every last speck off.
yeah, even with a toothbrush or whatever, it has to be.
We did it as a favour for one of the botanic gardens we work with in the US. There'd been 3 of them going around the country collecting woody plants, primarily. I think, well, if not all woody plants. So yeah, they couldn't get them back. I took all our staff an entire working week just to clean them and prepare them for the shipment. There's nothing taller than a metre allowed to go into the US. So you've got to cut the roots right down and the tops right down, and you've got to defoliate everything.
Yeah, so your plants are regularly inspected by plant health?
Yes.
They are. We work very closely with them. We've got a license to collect wild plants and import them. And to do that, we've had to set up a quarantine unit that the plants have to go into for a minimum of 12 months. But they certainly had to be clean of absolutely everything after the 12 months to be allowed out, otherwise they're destroyed. In fact, there is a risk that if you do bring anything nasty in, that the entire lot will have to be destroyed. So this tunnel is devoted to primarily hydrangea family. Hydrangea asperas in the back there, got climbing hydrangeas down in this area, and we've got a hydrangea relative here called Cardiandra, which is completely herbaceous. This is a plant that we set out to collect after researching it in Kew. They're from Taiwan, endemic, this particular species, to Taiwan. And in fact, it's quite endangered there since we've initially collected them, practically getting wiped out by natural disasters. Really.
Yeah, well, we had a hard time finding this, didn't we? Because we got there just after an earthquake, and the devastation was incredible. I mean, you had rocks the size of office blocks that had rolled down. Anyway, we managed to find this on our final day. And again, what's really gratifying working with the Taiwanese is that we've grown these on now, and we're able to send plants back to them, things that they've perhaps lost in the wild, because they have these awful earthquakes, and you have sides of mountains just go, just as if you're dropping a roller blind. That's how it just slides down. Climate change is having a big effect on so many of the plants now. Plants that we used to grow so well, we can't grow anymore because it's just too hot for them. Again, we're having the dry springs, but it's very noticeable what we are now unable to grow, which we used to grow a lot of.
How do you manage the pest and disease control on this nursery generally?
Yeah, initially we used to use chemicals to control pests and diseases here. But with all the advice that we've had, especially from yourself, we're very happy to be using the predators and the nematodes. They seem to be working really well for us. It takes a little while to get used to, of course.
So when you started developing online sales via your website and various other publicity, what difficulties did you find with it? You know, I mean, you mentioned couriers. Was that a problem, or?
The couriers weren't a problem. It was learning how to pack. Yeah. Just it was a steep learning curve, and we did get, for example, when we first sent out without lids.
Mm-hmm.
And things were dropped into the boxes, and we did have things became damaged, but we learned how to pack, really. And we had assistance from other nursery growers. They advised us, and we designed our own boxes. Steep learning curve, but you know, we got there in the end.
One of many of the crops that we grow in here.
But now then, all these plants are for collection or delivery only, aren't they? We have a cut-off with mail order. We can only ship as far as 120 centimetres.
Well, the bottom low would be able to go.
We're
using the shade of the larger plants
to
protect the shade plants, which are a lot lower, sarcococcus.
But it's also amazing how, you know, some of these plants we can get into a box, can't we? They're pretty flexible, yes.
There's obviously some big online companies setting up now to supply plants. So have you got any plans to deal with those?
No.
So the crocus and
crocus source. It's very interesting because crocus source plants for designers too, and so we do a lot of work with crocus, and they will source plants from us, but they pay the retail price. There's no wholesale at all.
No.
This is why you've got to have plants that nobody else is growing.
And again, you know, crocus source plants for designers for the Chelsea gardens, and we do supply a lot of the main avenue gardens as well with our stuff, don't we?
Oh yeah.
And that's where the field grown stuff comes in. We lift plants in the autumn, containerize them for the May show.
Yeah.
And again, so we can put them into sort of large pots and everything, and then they grow them on. We don't take responsibility for that.
Yes, great. Oh, we've even started hiring plants out to them as well.
Hiring out plants.
Yep. Yeah, you get 1/3 of the price of a plant. You know, if you've got a plant that's worth £1,000, you get a good whack for it. Especially when you've hired it out to them 3 times. Each one of these plants is a crop for us. You know, we can take cuttings off this aerial rooting climber, member of the hydrangea family again. It's one of the large commercial companies wants to have a go at mass producing this aerial rooting climber or aerial rooting hydrangea. Wonderful scented flowers on it. It stays small, quite compact. This is 20 years old, and that's all it's done in that time. But the inflorescences are the same size as the normal climbing hydrangea. But the scent from them is really knockout, fills the whole area.
You've developed a number of Crûg lines now. Do you actually do any breeding, or is it just a case of screening seedlings or spotting?
More the latter, the bit of screening. But yeah, we don't do any actual hybridizing.
No
crossing.
Control crossings or anything. You just keep your eyes open. If you get a good strain, then you start bulking that up.
You get plenty out of it by just keeping your eyes open and looking out for something that stands out.
But we do have breeders come here who select plants, take them away and trial them.
Yeah.
And then they sign contracts and they will produce them by whatever, thousands.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that line as well.
And what about the science of these plants? You tend to get involved in a lot of.
We get
naming.
requests from all over the world for some of the plants, material as well. University projects all over the world, wanting just leaves off all the different species within a genus, for instance.
But I think that's the part that you really enjoy, isn't it? You know, the scientific part and
academic side of it.
You really enjoy it.
Well, how did you get into that then? Because you got no formal training in horticultural botany or anything. Did you just
taught to read?
Taught to read?
Yes, I've read a few books.
I think he's always had an inquisitive mind.
So you do get involved in all this complex taxonomy nowadays and moving plants from one group to another. I know you're big on the hydrangea family. That seems to be quite a complicated issue.
I am asked about quite a few, how I feel. My opinions asked for, put it that way. So there's some input. In fact, even on I think the flora of China. What was it? Oh, Daphne filums. Yeah, I think we're about the only people who've done anything with Daphne filums. They sent, well, Chinese flora rather, world of their own.
But that's a great credit to you because you're self-taught and now being asked to speak at conferences all over the world. You know, I think it just shows you that if you really love what you do, you know, there are great opportunities.
I think you need more than the ability to be able to read, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
You've got to be, you've got to have that sort of mind that you worry about what group plants are in.
You have. I think it's a way of life. It's not a money-making business by any means. It's a way of life. But as I say to other people, you know, you're not rich in money, but you're rich in so many other ways. And it's just the adventures we've had, the people we've met. You know, I mean, that we have just been so fortunate, haven't we?
Yeah. Quite different from going to market once a week as a farmer.
I bet. Yeah, it's a massive jump, isn't it? Yeah. It's amazing how you took that jump really and diversified, so long ago as well.
I think we're very lucky too that we work very well as a team. You know, we don't compete against one another. Bleddyn's the scientist part. I do the selling. You know, I like to talk and everything like that. And so we complement one another. I think it works very well.
Right, Ellie, you're involved in setting up the Young Propagators, what do you call it, group?
Society, yeah.
Society, and how's that going and what did you do to get it off the ground?
It's going really well. We're on to our 4th issue now. That's going to be out in October. And we just started it we started talking about it last summer. My friend Sophie and I, she's the propagator at Great Dixter, the nursery assistant supervisor there. And we just kind of wanted to start it so we could gather young propagators because we would always talk about propagation, us two. And then we started thinking, well, who else is really interested in propagation? Like specifically instead of just garden design or horticulture in general. So we started this up. And it's just a bit of fun, really. We just kind of have articles from people, our members, which it's completely free. We just kind of print it ourselves. Get our members to contribute content for us.
Oh, so you're sort of sharing techniques and things that's gone well for you, are you?
Yeah. The journey into horticulture also has some art and poetry as well, anything that inspires them. And it's kind of the aim is to get people inspired, but also to pass information. Lots of very knowledgeable propagators of older generations kind of just work, and they get on and they have all this knowledge, but they don't pass it down. And so we want to spread that around and get the young people inspired by it.
Yeah, and from what I know of the trade, there's a big shortage of plant propagators, and I always think it's a very good line to go into. Is it international then, or is it just UK at the moment?
It is. In the first scene, we sent loads to America and some to Australia, a couple to India, and then since then, lots in Europe as well, and Sweden. So people are interested all over. Social media has been really good with that, because we just have to post a picture of that on Instagram and off it goes.
Right, does it include the commercial trade and all the botanical gardens and all that?
Yes, it does a little bit, but we like to make it more specialist scientific propagation and more traditional style. So nurseries like Crûg and Dixter. We have a feature called Quick Questions, which we ask a different nursery person. So this one is Derry Watkins of Special Plants Nursery. And we ask the same 16 questions, and they all give us the different answers. So we can see how in the same industry, people do things differently.
So the young people in the group are benefiting from the sort of skilled practitioners?
I think so. And from if they might know of these names, but to learn a little bit more about them. Certainly when I first came into I started my career really when I went to Great Dixter, and I just heard all these names, Dan Hinckley and Dan Pearson and stuff. And yeah, of course. And then so I had to find out more about them. So I kind of feel like I'm giving the young people the information of who these important people are in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and like I say, the industry has always been short of propagators, so anything that can bring people on and give them a bit of confidence and realise they're not on their own, it's very, very useful going forward.